In Peter Jackson's The Lord of the Rings films, one moment subtly redefined Aragorn's character, his quiet admission to Eowyn that he was not in his 60s, but 87 years old. For viewers unfamiliar with J.R.R. Tolkien's deeper lore, this might have seemed like a one-off fantasy quirk. But for fans of the books, it was a small window into a much grander mythos, one that reveals Aragorn's gift of long life was not quite as unique as the films suggest. Though Aragorn was indeed extraordinary, he wasn't alone in his longevity. He was a member of the Dunedain, a dwindling race of men descended from the once glorious Numenorians, seafarers who were blessed with strength, wisdom, and lifespans far beyond those of ordinary men. The truth is, there were other characters throughout The Lord of the Rings who also carried Numenorian blood and could be counted among the Dunedain, albeit in diluted form. Aragorn may have been special, but he was not entirely singular. The Dunedain and their noble origins. The Dunedain were descended from the survivors of Numenor, an island kingdom gifted to the men who helped the elves and Vala defeat Morgoth, the first Dark Lord. In exchange, they were granted longer lives and vast knowledge. But hubris and Sauron's manipulation led Numenor to its ruin, sinking beneath the sea in a cataclysmic downfall. Elendil and his sons, Isildur and Anarion, escaped with a small fleet of survivors and founded the kingdoms of Arnor in the north and Gondor in the south. From these lineages came the Dúnedain of Middle-earth, noble men blessed with long life, valor, and an enduring legacy. But time, war, and intermingling with other peoples eroded their strength. By the time of The Lord of the Rings, the Dunedain were few, scattered, and fading into myth. Aragorn, the last of the unmingled line. What made Aragorn exceptional wasn't just that he was a Dunedain, it was that he was the Dunedain. As the heir of Isildur, Aragorn came from a line that had remained largely unmingled with other bloodlines. In Tolkien's words, he was of the race of the West unmingled, making him one of the last true Numenorian descendants. He wasn't immortal, but he lived to 210 years, a lifespan that rivaled the kings of Numenor before its fall. However, while Aragorn was the most visible and pure-blooded example, other characters had ties to Numenor too, though their gifts were weaker. Hidden Dunedain throughout Middle-earth. The Dunedain were more than just a forgotten footnote in Aragorn's biography. They were quietly present throughout The Lord of the Rings. Faramir, for instance, was considered unusually wise, strong, and noble. Gandalf even noted that the blood of Westeros runs nearly true in him. Faramir lived to 120, far longer than the average lifespan of a man in Middle-earth. Boromir and Denethor, his brother and father, also shared this legacy, though they were not as long-lived. Their family, the Stewards of Gondor, descended from the Numenorian elite who ruled after the original kings vanished. Even Eowyn and Eomer had Numenorian ancestry through their grandmother, Morwen Steelsheen. However, the bloodline was diluted enough that they aged like ordinary Rohirrim, aside from being taller and hardier than most. So while Aragorn's 87-year-old youthful appearance shocked Eowyn, it wasn't the only example of the Dunedain bloodline. It was simply the clearest and most potent. The Rangers of the North, remnants of Arnor. When Aragorn referred to the Northern Kingdom being destroyed long ago, he meant the fall of Arna, laid waste by the Witch King of Angmar. The survivors became the Rangers of the North, mysterious guardians of Middle-earth's wilds, protecting lands that had forgotten them. In The Return of the King, 30 Rangers came to Aragorn's aid before he entered the paths of the dead. Though only a fraction of their people, it hinted at how few remained. With no permanent settlements and a secretive existence, the Rangers likely numbered only in the low hundreds, perhaps fewer. Still, they retained the long life and nobility of their heritage, echoing a lost age. The Dunedain's tragic decline. What truly sets the Dunedain apart is not just their lineage, but their slow, inevitable fading. Intermarriage with non-Dunedain led to shorter lifespans in each generation. Many with Numenorian ancestry no longer resembled their noble ancestors, becoming indistinguishable from other men. Only a rare few, like Aragorn and the Rangers, preserved their ancient bloodline, and even they were dwindling. As Elrond said at the council, ever since that day, the race of Numenor has decayed. It's a melancholy truth that permeates Tolkien's mythology, the passing of great things into legend, remembered only by the elves and the wise. Aragorn's gift and burden. While Aragorn's longevity was presented in the films as something nearly magical, it was more of a final ember from an ancient fire. He bore the legacy of Numenor not just in his years, but in his responsibility. In choosing to become king and restore the reunited kingdom, he also chose to lead his people through the twilight of their golden age. His choice to die at 210 was also an echo of Numenor's noblest tradition, the willing surrender of life at its natural end, rather than clinging